Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda Stancil, a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. All right, welcome back, or maybe welcome to for your very first experience to the Shut Up and Sit podcast. I'm Yedda, and I am here today to talk to you about the 10 steps to getting real with ourselves. On our last episode, we were with the great JJ White. If you did not get a chance to listen to that episode, we were talking about why are we killing ourselves? And you may be wondering, gosh, that sounds pretty harsh, Yedda. The truth is a lot of us are killing ourselves with our health behaviors. JJ and I talked about that. We introduced a little bit about that concept. Talked a little bit about his journey to health and how health really is a foundation in the personal development space. I wholeheartedly believe, I shared with JJ and you all on the last episode, that our health is our greatest wealth. And I ask clients this, and I have my whole career, is when was the last time you invested in yours? Do you even invest in yours? And I started with this foundation of health and well-being in my own career. I always thought that in personal development, we should be talking about health and well-being, not just mindset. JJ and I talked about that on the last episode as well. Both of, he's been in personal development for a long time, and we talked about how we need to understand it's all integrated. It's a holistic, experiential way of developing ourselves as human beings. And so I'm going to be a little bit harsh today. And when I say harsh, we're going to get a little bit serious, and I'm going to get a little bit heavy with some statistics. Why is that? To wake you up, to remind you that your health is your greatest wealth. I'm going to tell you a little bit of some human stories and experiences of my own, of how that the health equation got my attention, how that happened, why I went into health and wellness as my first career, and then connect the dots with you in this whole Shut Up and Sit movement. As I mentioned, it's holistic, it's experiential, and it's integrated. When we find silence, we don't forget about the body, we don't forget about the mind. We're really using silence, that soulful, silent, still space inside of ourselves, to actually integrate the parts of our body and our mind with the spirit. And whether you're new to this whole concept of this kind of a trinity in the well-being world, I would say most people I've encountered in my career do believe that there is something else besides just our physical fitness and our mental well-being, that there is some other spiritual component to being human. We're all on the quest at some point in our lives to find that, to figure that out. But in order for us to get into this a little bit further, I want to start with health with you all. I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to talk about what's really happening, and this whole idea of health. And there's a great TED Talk that I use in my book and with clients about the magnificence of who we are. The most incredible scientist on the planet, when they look at life and how to create life. It's a great TED Talk, and the gentleman that actually invented the MRI says this. He said, mathematically, we cannot solve the equation to explain how life is created. There is a divinity and a dignity to the intelligence that creates every single cell of our being. And when I think about that, that really gets my attention. And I love the words dignity and divinity. Actually, as I'm talking to you all, it actually makes me sit up a little bit taller, that there's some dignity to who I am as a human being, that there is divinity. And I don't mean, I want to give you all in this show, I think we got to start right out of the gate. I got to let you guys know, I want to give you permission to get out from under religious dogma. When I say words like divinity or spirituality, whoever you are, wherever you were raised, whatever your beliefs are, they're welcome here. I happen to believe that when we talk about dignity, divinity, spirituality, when I talk about the soul, that divine intelligence actually speaks to us through a knowingness. And I love this, that unconditioned consciousness is actually what we experience in silence. And what does that mean? It doesn't have any human conditions wrapped around it. Our ego hasn't done anything with it yet. So when I'm in silence, when I'm in a spiritual, silent, still space inside of my own being, which is really what Shut Up and Sit is all about, I can listen and find that knowingness that comes from a universal divine intelligence that's way bigger badder and way more badass than anything I can find out in the world. And so that's the belief that I hold. And we're on this journey to help all of you find that as well. But we're still human beings. I was actually out on a call before I recorded this show this morning, and one of the ladies was, I just want to be done with, the stress of the world and dealing with people, and is a coaching client. And I said, well, that would be great, but our ego helps us in the world. Our ego helps us take care of our body, helps us take care of our mind. If we didn't have the other components, the body and the mind, we would literally be like glowing blobs of Jell-O on the floor. That's what we would be, because the spirit doesn't have a physical form. And so we have to talk about health and well-being. And what I mentioned on the previous episode with JJ was we all come into this work in different ways. We pick at different parts of ourself along the way. And, JJ was talking about how he really worked on his mindset, but he had let go of the physical. And I know for me, I spent most of my first career totally focused on the physical, being completely physically fit, making sure I looked great. All my appearances were great physically, but I hadn't really done the work on the mindset. And as we talked about in the episode about this war going on inside of me. So wherever you are today, if you've got the body, the mind, and the spirit in balance, or you're feeling really good about it, I'm hoping I can impart some new information to help you keep that journey going. If you have one of those areas you want to work on, health and wellness, when we get up and feel good, we can do good. So let's dig into this magnificence that I mentioned. And in my book, I have a quote in chapter 1, and it says, "Your creation is the most valuable possession you have on planet Earth or in the universe. And it's time for all of us to wake up and realize the sacred magic of who we are as human beings in this physical form in this lifetime." And as I say that, I do want you to think, all of the health habits that you have, how many of them serve you? How many of your habits might actually hold you back? And if you're thinking, well, I don't really have that many bad habits. If you look at, and for folks that are going to be seeing this on video, they'll see, we've got some amazing data in the Shut Up and Sit book that gives you the statistics about what's going on in the world with our health. But I just want to share a couple. You may know some of these. The current leading causes of death in the United States, no surprise. Number 1 is heart disease. Number 2 is cancer. Number 3 is actually accidents. Number 4 is chronic lower respiratory diseases. Number 5 is stroke. 6 is Alzheimer's. 7 is diabetes. 8 is influenza. 9 and 10 get a little bit more into intentional self-harm. We get into the mental well-being. Mental health is big in our society right now. So when we look at what's going on in our world, a lot of these come from our human behavior. These are things that we need to be aware of, that we need to know about. If this is new news to you, then hey, that's great. If it's news to you, when we look at what's going on with our health in the United States of America, I get really sad. I start to really worry about and wonder what's really going on. When I started thinking about moving into the personal development space, if heart disease is the number 1 killer and it is directly related to stress and lifestyle, then why wouldn't we do something to make our lifestyle better? Why wouldn't we be out there making healthier choices? And so this has been the age-old question in health and wellness is, I can teach you to stop doing certain behaviors. But as I mentioned in the episode with JJ, there's a deeper question here, which is, what inner need does your worst habit fulfill? We talked about that briefly, but I want to bring that back into this episode. I really want you to take a moment and ask yourself, what inner need does my worst habit fulfill? We have habits. They help us to fulfill emotional needs, psychological needs that are inside of us. And so all of these things, and again, I do not want to give you guys, if I really read all of the data that was in here in the book, you would literally go home and go, oh my gosh, Yedda, I'm so depressed. This isn't meant to depress you. But health risk behaviors are unhealthy behaviors that we have. You can actually change them. And if you can wake up out of the trance, turn off autopilot and realize, why do I get up and do what I do every day? You can make new choices that will actually make you feel better. So many of us, and I've been guilty of it, we've woken up where every day we just do the same old thing. We feel the same old way. And until we get a contrast of what it might feel like to feel different, we don't really know any different. I work with a lot of people. They go to bed at night. They have a few drinks to unwind because they're so stressed out. They don't get very good sleep. They wake up. They need coffee to get out the door. They don't eat right. And this cycle just continues. They're not exercising. And then if I want to just ask them to add something else to their life to make them feel better, if they're not taking care of themselves, if we're not taking care of ourselves physically, all I'm doing is just adding another stressor onto all the other things that are already not working. So when we look at these negative decisions, these negative behaviors that we have in our life, and when I say negative, you guys, that's not meant with judgment or label. Negative to me is something that takes us on this downward spiral. So when we look at these decisions we're making, they are negative because our energy is going down the drain when we eat unhealthy food, when we drink, when we don't exercise. And so I want us to realize as a society, we have an ability to wake up and take better care of ourselves, but it's not going to come from willpower alone. It's going to come from waking up, from shutting up and sitting down and saying, why? The question I asked JJ was, why am I eating the Twinkie? I'm eating the Twinkie because every time I eat the Twinkie, I remember unconsciously feeling good the way I felt good as a kid when I ate a Twinkie. So I'm trying to bring that experience back into my adult life by eating the Twinkie. It's all pattern behaviors, you guys. And so when you start to think about what are these patterns of behaviors that you're participating in, when you do a little bit of a deeper dive and you sit with them and you sit with the question and you wake up and you get a little bit more silence and stillness and some space in between where you're at and where the Twinkie is in the cupboard, you actually create freedom. You create the choice to say, I'm really feeling this, or I'm thinking about this, which is causing me to feel this, which is making me want to go get the Twinkie because unconsciously I know when I eat the Twinkie, I feel better. We all know Twinkies are made of sugar. They're amazing. I remember as a kid thinking they were delicious. I very rarely had them. We didn't have a lot of money when I was a kid for stuff like that. I think for us, we had, and this is just a side note, we had Cheerios. My mom would buy Cheerios, not even honey nut flavored, you guys. We would just get plain old Cheerios and honey. That was like our version of some type of sweet cereal or sweet type of treat. We just didn't have the money to get all these sugary processed foods. And back in the 70s, when those foods came out and they were on the market, they actually cost more then because they were being introduced. Now our crappy, shitty food is so cheap and so affordable. It's gone kind of inverse. But my mom didn't have any extra money and she certainly wasn't going to splurge on junk food. We had to buy regular food to feed our family. And so when we eat sugar, when we eat sweet foods, it creates a dopamine spike in the brain. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling really crappy as a kid. I had a bad day. Kids picked on me at school or my siblings or whatever. Somebody said something to me that made me feel small and want to disappear. And then I go and have something sweet. The dopamine spikes in my brain. And now all of a sudden, my body and my physiology have said, feel shitty, eat Twinkie. Oh, feel awesome. But the truth is what made you feel awesome was the dopamine spike in your brain. And we're looking right now in the world for things to make us feel better. And we go on the outside, we grab them. And then unfortunately with food is such an addiction because it literally wires our brain and our body to then crave more of it. It is an addiction. So this dopamine spike that we get from carbs, from sugar, from alcohol, we even get dopamine spikes from shopping, from sex. I mean, there are lots of ways to get that dopamine spike going. When we hit and we get that dopamine up and we partner it with a really shitty experience, guess what? We've now laid the neural pathway and track in our brain and also the physiology in our body to say, do that again the next time you feel like crap, Yedda. Now, for me, and I mentioned this on the show with JJ, I didn't get partnered with a lot of crappy food patterns and habits because we just didn't have it. I remember one time in high school going over to a friend's house for a sleepover and she had Lucky Charms. And I snuck downstairs in the middle of the night and I got into the pantry and I ate the entire box of Lucky Charms because I'd never had it. Oh my God, was it amazing? But we just didn't have the money, like I said, to buy stuff like that. So I did get to experience it. I remember can you imagine waking up and your daughter's friend, literally there's an empty box just totally left in the bottom of the pantry where your daughter's friend has just devoured an entire box of cereal. And I remember telling the parents when I got caught that, I'd never had it before. It was so good. I just wanted to go downstairs and eat all of it, but I couldn't stop myself because it was so good. It was so delicious. And so for me, food was never something that I had readily accessible, except for the few sleepovers. And actually, I don't even know if I got invited back to that girl's house again. They probably thought that was a little bit cray-cray that, your friend comes over and she totally just like hides in the pantry all night and eats junk food. But it should give you a good idea of, we just didn't have that opportunity in my house. So food was never really an issue for me, and it never really got partnered in a bad pattern or habit. I'll tell you what did get patterned for me was definitely alcohol, was definitely drugs. So for me, growing up as a kid, and I do love when I do go get my physicals or I go to a doctor's appointment, they make you fill out that form and they're like, hey, what's your health history for your family? We don't have any of the statistical diseases, but we do have drug addiction. We do have alcoholism, anxiety, depression, mental well-being, and mental health issues. And so what my family on both sides, my mom and my dad's side of the family, they learned to self-medicate. And brilliant people, incredibly creative, artistic, wonderful, loving people, but anxiety, depression, poverty, lack, a lot of belief systems were in play that people in our family just used numbing techniques like alcohol, like drugs, like interpersonal relationships. And so for me, the patterned behavior that I learned if I wasn't feeling good was to go do those types of things. And if you haven't heard my episode, actually my first guest on the podcast is actually my mom, and she tells a little bit about her story. At 14, she started drinking because that's just what people did in my grandparents' family was they just drank to make themselves feel better. There's no judgment in sharing that. And why I want to make sure I say that is we are all passing on learned behaviors and patterns. And so I look back generationally at my mom's side of the family, at my dad's side of the family, patterns of behavior of dysfunction and these different types of coping skills, if you will, were just passed on. They were just learned. So here I was as a teenager dealing with, my own stuff, my parents getting divorced. The first time I was young, I was 5. The second time when my parents got divorced, I was in middle school. And so for me in high school, the way I dealt with a lot of insecurities, and I had some, you guys, I remember being a teenager thinking I was the most unattractive, not fit, not smart, nobody wanted me type of human being. I really believed that. And again, that's with no judgment or labels to the people that raised me. But, what I experienced and how things happened for me, a lot of narrative that I wrote was that I just wasn't enough of anything. You name it, I could fill in the blank. And so being in a place where all of a sudden I could go have some beers with friends at school and I'd have something to connect with people. I remember, this is back in the 80s, you guys, when they were building neighborhoods here on the south side of Richmond, we'd go to cul-de-sacs in these newly developed neighborhoods and play loud music. And oh my God, as I'm saying it, it feels like some awful second version of a Footloose movie. But turn our headlights on and just sit out and drink and party and smoke cigarettes and get high. And that was fun for us. It was a totally different world, but that's how I created connection within the community that I was in, was through drugs and alcohol. One thing leads to another, which leads to another. I'm certainly not proud of it, but I experimented with a lot of drugs. And so part of my story, and again, my mom mentioned it in our episode, I was put into drug rehab at 16. I was a hot mess. I mean, it was really bad how much I had gone down this path of drugs and alcohol to just numb a lot of the pain that I was experiencing. So back to the story of how all this comes together and why this matters to you. We're all dealing with different behaviors and we've learned different ones. Maybe yours is ho-hos and Twinkies. Maybe it's cheeseburgers and French fries. Maybe it's comfort Southern food. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe you don't have any of those challenges, and that's great. That's awesome. But I would be willing to bet when I look at these statistics and I look at not only how many people are dealing with chronic disease in our country, but the impact financially of what that's doing to our economy, to our health, to our well-being. If it's not you, somebody really close to you is experiencing some type of health condition. And so what got me, my wake-up call is between the ages of 17 and 20, I had come out of rehab and then at 16, I came out of rehab. My grandfather, who was the closest, most loving male human being to me on the planet. I mean, if there was one sacred, safe space in my childhood where somebody said, you matter, you exist, and would give me their full undivided attention without judgment, which, by the way, that's what I call love, total attention, no judgment, would have been my grandfather. I called him Papa. And so when I was 17, he went in for a surgery. His carotid arteries had gotten really clogged. And when he went into surgery, he actually had a stroke on the operating room table. And then shortly after that, ended up passing away. And so my grandfather was 54 years old, you guys. 54. I'm going to be 49 this year. And to me, he was old. But think about that. He was 54 years old. And so he had 18 grandkids. He had 6 kids. He had a family. He had a life. And when he passed away, I couldn't believe that at 54 years old, and I'd never experienced death or loss. And I thought, what's going on here? What happened? And what we know is that his diet, his lifestyle clogged these arteries. And when they clogged these arteries, growing up on a farm, literally ate, sausage and gravy and biscuits and bacon and ham. And it clogged his arteries. And so when they did the surgery to clean out his arteries, that's what caused the stroke. And so I asked my mom, I said, what killed Papa? And my mom said, well, what killed Papa was his lifestyle. And I thought, oh, crap. Well, I started asking, do I have the same lifestyle that he had? And so I really struggled with that, but I kept drinking, kept partying. The next year, my brother, at the time he was 20, so I was 18. He was 2 years older than me. And so my brother, who was actually from my biological father's first marriage, so we were same dad, different mom, but he lived with his mom, and we would go and spend weekends with our dad together. And so at the age of 20, they found him dead in his bedroom floor. He had been dealing with some pituitary tumors, had some brain surgery. We thought he was going to be fine. So here I am now, a year later. My brother, he's 20. I'm 18. He's gone. Just gone. And I couldn't put it together, you guys. I really, that one hit hard. And so what was really hard was he wasn't that much older than me. He smoked. He didn't have, he didn't party near as much. He was a phenomenal baseball player. He was an incredible kid. But there he was, brain tumor, didn't survive. So I started really leaning hard into my numbing, my suffering techniques that I had to cover that suffering up, which was the alcohol, which was the drugs. And so another year goes by. And on my brother's birthday, my dad at the age of 43 dies in a hotel room. And a big fancy word for it, you guys, is drug intoxication. What that means is your heart stops because too many things in your system mix together, pharmaceutical, recreational. And that, to me, that was it. I just felt like that circle was getting closer and closer and closer and closer in. And I thought, first my grandfather, then my brother, then my father. The 3 most incredible, male relationships at that point in my life that I had were all just totally removed and taken from me. And my dad's was the hardest. And I go into a little bit more detail about this in my book. In that moment, you guys, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I used to bet people that I could drink them under the table. Little old waif of me, 100 plus pounds. I would drink a 5th of bourbon in a night. Seriously. I remember getting alcohol poisoning, doing that on a bet, a 12 pack of beer, getting high. If any of my friends from high school end up listening to this podcast, I bet you if we had a call-in show, Griffin, I don't know, maybe we need to add that in. They could tell you stories. I literally walk in the grocery store sometimes and I'm like, gosh, shit, I hope they don't recognize me. I just want to keep going. I don't want to talk about the night that I caught my hair on fire when we were at the party at such and such, which I did. I was totally out of control. And so here I was, and I'd already been through rehab. And the only thing rehab gave me, great hookups to find more people to sell me better drugs and give me better party opportunities. And so I just wasn't going to stop. I was going full throttle into the brick wall. And the brick wall came, and it came in the form of my dad. And so when I sat there that Saturday morning, I remember my mom coming over and telling me everything. I mean, it was like something in my brain snapped. And everything in my being said, I can't keep living like this. It killed him. My father, big, huge, handsome, gorgeous biker, long, dark hair. I say big and huge. I mean, he was 6'3". He'd walk in a room and he would just fill it with his presence. And this badass biker, party, awesome guy. I mean, I thought he was going to live forever. I mean, I think we all think we're going to live forever. And in that moment, I mean, none of the conversations that were left unfinished could ever be finished, you guys. None of those moments where you think, oh, I'll just deal with that the next time I talk to them. And I thought, this lifestyle has killed the people that I love. Why aren't we waking the fuck up? What are we doing wrong as a society to not deal with losing family members? And so for you guys, and you'll learn further in our shows, but my book goes into great detail, and the type of coaching that I do, I really went hell bent. And I mean, when I say hell bent, every addiction, every shitty patterned health behavior that I had in me that was all about alcohol, drugs, numbing, sex, behavioral, whatever I had done, it all stopped exactly in that moment. And I did a hard left. And I said, I'm not going to be the next one on the list. So that's when I got my shit together. I went back to school. I started studying health, fitness, nutrition, human behavior. I wanted to understand why people did what they did. I was on a mission to help people figure out how to make sure they didn't go through what I went through, to keep them from losing a loved one. I did not ever want somebody to feel the hole that I was in. The night that we had the funeral, or I guess the wake before we buried my dad, was probably, if it wasn't the darkest night in my life, it was probably right up there with when I had my breakdown darkest night. I, up at that point, had never had that kind of grief. And when I say, I had to pause on that, the breakdown of the dark night of the soul of my ego and kind of that splatting on the bottom of the swimming pool that I talk about in my first intro episode here, that was pretty traumatic. So this was right there with it. And I just decided that everything I had in me that was really fucking everything up in my health and well-being, I was going to put into figuring out how to build health and vitality and energy and wellness inside of me. I did not want to end up being another statistic, and I did not want one of my family members to get a phone call that I had been found. And, for my dad, it's a really sad story. And he's literally found in a hotel room. The two guys that he was with and that was partying with him, they robbed him before they left him dead in a hotel room. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. I didn't want that for anybody. So when I get really serious and drop some of these statistics and start to beat you over the head and talk about, wake up, it's for real, people. It's totally for real. There is no guarantee that we get the next moment. But wouldn't it be awesome if you could break free from those addictive patterns and habits, all those shitty behaviors that are causing the chronic disease, the heart disease, all of the the diabetes, the health behaviors that are holding you back from living your fullest life? You have to have the physical body in order to live in this human world. Wouldn't it feel great to wake up every day and make choices that lift your body up as well as lift your mind up? Because the battle really is with the mind and the body. You're going to hear me say this a lot. The soul always sits in silent, still awareness and just lets the body and the mind duke it out. The mind will always impart its will on the body and even try to on the spirit. And then the body will impart its will on the mind and even try on the spirit. And the spirit, the soul, the essence of us just sits there because it knows it's eternal. It doesn't have to do anything. And it knows in that silent, still awareness that the body doesn't live forever. The mind doesn't live forever. But it also knows that when the three can come together and start working where the body says, hey, let's give you the energy and vitality that you need, mind, to help you to make good decisions, which then you need spirit and soul to hold all of us together as we go out into the world, we begin to operate at a different level. So Shut Up and Sit is definitely going to have some health components to it. But here's what's happening. If we don't address our health behaviors right out of the gate to understand what are we doing to numb that suffering. In mindfulness, we say pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We're going to have pain in life. We're going to lose loved ones. We're going to lose jobs. Kids are going to grow up, move away from home. Things might not work out the way that we have originally or initially planned they would. And the ego really gets challenged by that. And so it jumps in to try to protect us, and it can really build into a grandiose false sense of self. And so until we begin to understand that those behaviors, and they're just in place to numb something that you just need to learn to drop a little bit deeper, to learn to be able to sit with. Shutting up, sitting down with what's going on in the space inside of you. When you do that work, you don't ever have to grab another Twinkie again. You don't have to go get a 12-pack of beer. The cigarettes, you actually start to lose all the desire for them because you're meeting your own inner needs with your own kindness and compassion and connection and love and joy. All of that is what's found in the silence, in the stillness. So you've already heard me talk about what we do in the face of suffering. And today, since you've just got me, we don't have a guest. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure I share with you. There are 10. I talk about them in chapter 1 in my book. There are, I say the 10 things, the 10 steps to get real with ourselves. You can write these down if you're listening or if you're watching. You can buy the book if you want to actually see them printed. We also have a workbook version where you can start to make some notes and actually do a little bit more. You could follow along with each episode with the workbook or the book if you want. Wherever you are today, I just want to share these 10 steps with you. They're important because taking responsibility for our health and well-being can only be done for us by us. It's nobody else's job to take care of you but you. So step number 1, all right? So here's our 10. You guys ready to write them down? We got 10 steps to get real with yourself, and you've probably learned by now. I'm just going to give it to you, shoot straight. I'm going to tell it to you just like it is. So number 1, most individuals underperform because of a crisis of vision that creates an inevitable cloud of misdirected activity. And I know you're like, Yedda, you said you could write these down or that I could write these down with you. I know that's long. If you want to boil that down, you need a vision. Period. End of discussion. We've already had an episode with Bob, my stepfather. He was on the show. You've got to have a vision. If you don't have a vision, you will create this whole big cloud of confusion, and you'll just be doing whatever comes up, whenever it comes up, however it comes up. So we got to get real with ourselves. We've got to have a really clear love-based vision, loving ourselves and figuring out what we love and how we want to bring love out into the world in all that we do. Step number 2. The individual works in their life, not on their health. Did you hear that? If you're just working in your life on autopilot, getting up every day, and you're not investing on working on your health, what's going to happen is the body keeps score, the body never lies, and it will get your attention at some point. Chronic disease, there's a reason why they call it chronic, you guys. It doesn't just happen like a millisecond or a minute or an instant. It's been happening for years inside your body. This is not something that you just, obviously traumas are things that happen in instantaneously, but chronic disease, they use the word chronic for a reason. It's been going on for a really long time. So we got to get real with ourselves. Quit just working on the business of just going about your life on autopilot and start working in your life on your health. Number 3. And I love this one. Oh man, I use this all the time with my clients. The system's the solution. It's that simple. And with the right systems, anything is possible. But if we're underperforming in our life, we fly by the seat of our pants instead of create a viable system that takes us to the solution we're looking for. So what does that mean? Get a love-based vision, start working on your health and well-being, And then we've got to create a system of how we're going to bring that about. The system is the solution. When you guys heard JJ on the last episode, the system he found was 75 hard. Maybe that one works for you. Maybe it's Weight Watchers. Whatever your system is, there's a ton of them out there. The health and wellness industry isn't going anywhere. Google exists for a reason. You guys can find your own system. But you find a system because a social norm is the number one way to change a behavior. If you want to be more like something in a health and well-being definition or defined way, go find people that are already doing it, because that's the easiest way for you to get that too. All right. So number 4, and I say this a lot, having started my career as a health coach, great guides hold people's hands when necessary and hold their feet to the fire when necessary. And I got news for you guys. It's time for us to hold our feet to the fire. This whole shut up and sit movement is geared to help you hold yourself accountable, right? Holding our hands when necessary and our feet to the fire when necessary boils basically down into accountability. Having people that keep us accountable in our life. When we're in a place where we don't have accountability, we'll justify the shit out of anything. Well, maybe just today I'll blow off, following the healthy prescription of diet and food and exercise that I've pulled for myself. And I'm just going to go out, and blow it out tonight at the bar. You can choose to do that. But if you're looking to take yourself to its fullest expression and highest self out in the world, your accountability and finding accountability partners, they're a part of that tribe, a part of that vibe that you're in that social norm. They're there to help you. Reach out, find somebody that can help you with that. Number 5, underperformance. Okay. And when we find an underperforming, and I'm going to use the word guide here, if they accept our excuses, and they think, that's okay. And so let's say you find this accountability partner and they're like, oh, it's okay if you go to the bar, I'll go to the bar with you. That's not somebody that's going to take you where you want to go. You've got to find people who are already there, because I've got news for you. When we're already there, we want to reach down and help people cross that bridge to come up to the level of awareness and success in our life that we're at. But we don't go back into that belief system or into that environment or into that tribe and hang out there once we've reached the place that we're at. It just doesn't work that way, because we don't find that enjoyable anymore. I don't go do the same stuff with my friends in the cul-de-sac in high school because I don't find it enjoyable. No judgment if they still do it, but I don't find that lifestyle enjoyable because I've grown and evolved and my awareness has expanded. All right, number 6. To change your health, you have to change are you ready? You have to change your patterns. You have to change your belief systems. And when I say that, what I mean is you have to go back and ask yourself, with my health habit that I'm trying to change, what inner need is it meeting that I could meet in another healthier way? So in order to change your health, you do have to take a look at and change a belief system that is driving you to meet that need in a way that is not serving you. All right, number 7. In order for health to improve, the individual must improve. What does that mean? Your health's not going to improve if you're and grow and evolve if you're not growing and evolving. You can't go and, let's say I'm going to use, I could name any different weight loss program out there, but you can't go participate, and let's use Weight Watchers as an example. You can't just go show up and do the motions, if you will, of a program without really improving and learning and expanding your own knowledge and awareness about what it is, how it works, why it works. That's why there's all these steps and apps and things to get you to wake up and start to learn something to improve what you are doing so that you can improve and get the outcome that you want. All right. I promise you, I'm getting down to the end here. Maybe you don't write all these down. Maybe you're just listening today, but these 10 things are really important when it comes to you guys waking up and what I tell people and just getting your shit together, getting your life together, feeling better. All right. So the habit of doing whatever comes up won't cut it if you want to build a successful health behavior. So you got to have plans. You got to have what I call in those oh shit moments where it's really exciting and it sounds like fun to go out and do something that goes totally against the plan you're working on. But you know what? It's not about saying no to other people. It's about saying yes to yourself. These are hard decisions. These are choices where a lot of moments you might feel like you're missing out on some of the fun that other people are having. But if you want to stay in the trance and you want to stay asleep and you want to keep feeding the ego and those unhealthy behaviors, then hey, just do it, go for it. But if you do put a plan in place that says in these, I call them hot-blooded moments, I've got a cool, calm-headed response already planned, I promise you, you'll be able to handle those moments when they come up. All right, the last two, and these are probably my two favorite. The stuff that keeps you busy, that makes you feel competent, that is the stuff that keeps you from seeing what you don't want to see about yourself. Did you guys hear that? Because I always end up repeating the last two. The stuff that keeps you busy, that makes you feel competent, AKA good about yourself, that's the stuff that keeps you from seeing what you don't want to see about yourself. So let me give you an example. I love cleaning. I was raised by a mom who cleaned houses for a living. On our summers, my mom took us to go clean houses with her. She didn't have babysitting, and she certainly didn't have money to pay a babysitter. So we would all go with my mom and clean houses in the summer. I was raised with a really great pattern, behavior, and belief system that you keep shit clean. You don't even keep it clean. You keep it really clean, like OCD clean. And so when I'm challenged to do something different, so let's just bring up, I'll tell you one thing I'm not interested in doing: spreadsheets, mathematics, anything analytical. If I get asked to do something like that, which I do get asked occasionally with my work clients or with my own business, that I have to sit down and, run numbers or do something, what happens is I will actually get up from the computer and I'll go start cleaning my house. Because you know what? That makes me feel good about me. I don't want to do something that makes me feel not good. I'm not great at spreadsheets, but I'm really, really good at cleaning. And so when you're in this awareness and you start to do this shut up and sit work and you start to get into this health and wellness space, it's not going to feel good to do the stuff that you're not naturally good at. Maybe you're not naturally good at eating alfalfa sprouts and making green smoothies. That's okay. But if you find yourself washing your car or organizing your underwear drawer when you've been asked to go eat something healthy, just wake up and go, oh, here I am again. I'm going to do something that makes me feel good about myself because something over here doesn't make me feel good. Just be aware, all right, that we naturally go do what A, makes us feel good, and B, at a better level, what makes us feel good about who we are. And not all the time is that a healthy, good thing to be doing. All right. Number 10, last one. You ready? Every individual needs to feel needed. It's a human design. You can call it a human design flaw if you want. It's just the way it goes. Every individual needs to feel needed. But here's what happens. Every individual, all of us, we create and we have these limiting beliefs or these underperforming belief systems around some area of our life that is in an unconscious way helping us get our needs met. And this is where belief systems, mindset, health, and well-being kind of merge in together. Until we wake up and we get real with ourselves and we start to ask ourselves, what are these limiting belief systems that are holding me back from achieving the health, the wellness, the success, the all of the things that I want in life to bring my best self out? Until those two come together and we start having a conversation with them, you're just going to get addicted to more programs and you'll get to the point where you never really drop down deep enough to do the work. That's really what Shut Up and Sit is about, helping you to drop down deeper, to find some silence and stillness and go underneath of all the mental chatter, all the health behaviors, all the life's decisions and say, who am I? What's my purpose? What am I grateful for? And how can I use that to serve something greater than myself? These are the moments and the questions in the silence and stillness that help us understand what's going on way beneath the surface, underneath the Twinkies, underneath the alcohol, underneath the addictions, all of the things we're using to numb the suffering, to distract the ego. When we realize, yeah, I'm a human being. I want to feel heard, needed, seen, valued, and loved. But I got to find that and meet that for myself first before the Twinkie, the drugs, the relationships, and the whole outer world can give that to me. That's when the real magic of silence starts to change your life and makes everything, I promise you, easier, more fun. Oh man. I think I did that in one breath, Griffin. I don't even know that I breathed. I love talking about this, you guys. I love this whole experience to just share with you all. I wanted to do this because I do this one-on-one with clients. I've been doing it for my whole career, and everyone's like, you got to get on a digital platform. People need to hear what you have to say. Whatever I said today, if it sparks your curiosity, if you're able to do anything with it, whether it's my story, whether it's the 10 steps to get real, or whether it's the health data that I shared with you all, what I want you to know is your health is your greatest wealth. It is possible for you to wake up and bring your sexiest, most soulful, most incredible self out into the world. And hopefully today, whatever you got from this will help you to take that just one step further. All right, we're wrapping up. Our next episode is coming up. We're going to be going a little bit further into the link is what you think on the next episode. One of my favorite things to talk about is thoughts. And I'll be back on that episode, just me teaching you a little bit more about thinking and how that is going to help you to understand what the next step is in going a little bit deeper into finding your magic inside of yourself. So until next time, I'll talk to you soon. This has been Yedda.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be at ease.